Well, hello everyone. Here we are entering week 6, and um, we are looking. This is our last online class, and we are looking at traditional training methods. And some of the learning objectives are going to be to describe the purpose, procedures, strengths, and limitations of the following types of training methods. Like, you know, how are we going to deliver the training? Like we said in our last class, many people learn many different ways. Some learn by rote lecture, they like to sit there and they take down notes. Others like to have, like we do in class, these Socratic discussions, question and answer type thing where everyone gets engaged, everyone gets involved. Maybe we do some role play. Uh, all of these types of things are stimulating because they help us learn um, to our learning styles. So, um, again, what's one learning style for one person may not be a learning style for somebody else. So you can't always assume that everyone is going to take the information in and disseminate that information the same way. Um, the other thing is there is, we discussed this in class on the job training techniques. We have wonderful technology these days where, especially in the financial areas, that are much less physical, where people are learning different types of financial programs, maybe even some programs in processing. People can learn online, and it doesn't pull them away from their jobs as much. The other thing is too, travel is so expensive these days and so time consuming. A lot of times we can have different types of meetings using Skype, webcam, Panopto, GoToMeeting with Microsoft. There's so many different things. Even with Apple, you can use FaceTime. Um, Learning is in itself something that people do within their own scope of limitations. What do I mean by that? Well, individuals learn based on their comfort zones. Sometimes, if you ever find yourself sitting somewhere trying to read an article on a paper, but you're distracted, you keep reading the words over and over and over again, and nothing registers, right? Could be we're tired, could be we have something on our mind that's just perplexing us, could be for a number of reasons. Or it could be maybe we just don't understand the sequence of the words. We don't understand exactly what is trying to be disseminated. So, in a lot of different types of learning, especially in training, you have to read body language. You have to be able to look at people, look them in the eye, and see if they're getting it. See, if everyone's giving you this blank stare, obviously they're not getting it. But when you're doing online training, um, unless you're doing like a virtual live class and you can see your class, you really don't know if people are getting it or not. That's why, using discussion groups, the Socratic approach to learning, all of these different things that help us um, know as teachers or facilitators where the students are coming from. So the thing is that it probably would be a good idea for you to look at page 199 in your book. There's a case called Ensuring Training Success at Farmers. I think this case on farmers insurance is a really good case to look at. Um, Look at the overview of the chapter and some of the lectures and demonstrations that follow after you read the case on pages 200 and page 201 specifically look at table 6.1, talks to training method effectiveness at meeting KSA objectives. And as you guys remember, KSA's knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Um, this gives you a pretty good rundown of how to put the training program together. You're looking at, again, we're attacking the different types of learning styles and what's best for your particular audience, okay? Are we looking at lecture and straight discussion? Um, Sometimes people like to play games, they like to do simulations where they can actually live the parts that they're studying. There are, I think the best thing, well, that I use is case studies because you can see how much people know or how much they need to know when they're doing the case studies. Role play. Some people are comfortable with that, some people are not. But again, taking yourself out of the moment to personally be under the hammer, to memorize certain types of information. If you role play it, you'll remember it for a longer period of time. You have a lot of good retention. And then the other thing is behavior modeling. You want to read about that as well. Um, and then finally, OJT, on the job training. Okay. A lot of people, sometimes when you join these companies, they give you a manual, and where does it end up? On the shelf? It gives you like 15,000 things you need to do to be effective in that company. And most people, really don't pay attention to it because it's like reading the Bible. Go to page 220, and we could tell you what the best procedure is for this particular exercise. You don't want to inundate your audience with a lot of lecture and things that they have to memorize because they won't keep it for longer periods of time. It's boring to them. Some people need to do it. They got to get their hands in it to really understand the process. So you got to be able to mix it up a little bit. You got to be able to explain it, and if it's going to be part of their job, you got to find ways to integrate that part of their job with the learned material. So these are things that you certainly want to look at and pay attention to. Now, go to page 203, table 6.2. This talks about typical lecture presentation errors and ways to avoid them. I'm not going to go through all of those things, but going through the chapter, if you go to page 207, it gives you lecture discussion components and how they affect learning. So this week, with your online component, I also want you to read on page 211. It's a case called, that's case 6.1, training in action. And that's a good case. It's about sales simulation. So read that as well. And then on page 213, 6.2, training in action. And that's Kimberly Clark's training for a product launch. I find that to be a pretty interesting case study. Hold on one second. There's one other one. Oh, yeah. 6.5 talks about role plays. Like I said earlier, a lot of trainers like to use them, a lot of trainers don't, because it can get, if you don't control it, it can get pretty out of hand on role play. People become very competitive because there's a lot of people around them, and sometimes they tend to take sides, okay? But I find 6.5 on page 218 to be a pretty good level of developing and presenting role play models, okay? So look at that on table 6.5, and it goes into, oh yeah, one more thing. Page 222, learning objectives, KSAS. Okay. Um, KSAS, learning process, retention, and attention. Yeah, go to page 223 and look at attention and retention. Read those things over 2 or 3 times. If you get someone's attention and it's only momentarily that attention, they're going to forget it. How do you retain it? That's what's important. What type of an environment do you think you need in the training so that when people learn, they're able to retain the material? So that's the type of reading that I want you to do. And then finally, go to page 225 of your text, and it talks about OJT techniques. You know, when you really can get into an effective OJT system, you don't really have to pull people off their job, lose a lot of time and money, and then they're scrambling when they go back to work to keep up with their customers. If you can allow them to set up an effective program, which will, get your supervisors to train them as they're doing, then you're going to be able to serve a dual purpose. Get them to train, but also maintain your competitive edge. Okay? That means you don't pull them off the job for so many hours, get temps to come in and do their job, and you don't even know if it's going to be right, and then they go back scrambling trying to keep up. So OJT can be a very effective component of training. So that's kind of where I'm going with this week. I am going to put a hypothetical up for you, okay? And during the course of the week, if I find some interesting videos, I'll throw them up there for you about OJT and stuff. So look into your module folder for that. And then I'll be putting up one more hypothetical 3, which will come, which will be due probably a week from the tail end of this week. Okay, so we're going Monday to Monday. So this following Monday really starts your online week. Okay, so look at this video, look at it a couple of 3 times that I just put up for you. Look at the things in the book that I want you to go over during the week. I'll throw up the next hypothetical and try to throw up some meaningful YouTubes for you. Okay, have a good week. Go Sox.